Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, let's understand what is forward proxy, what is reverse proxy, what are the differences between them, and we will not only understand these concepts theoretically, but we will learn them practically through some demonstrations. Make sure you watch this video till the end. And just like every time, just like all of our videos, even for this video, I created a GitHub repository with detailed notes. So after watching the video, you can go ahead, quickly recap the video and try the demo at your end. Perfect. So let's start from absolute basics. If you take any HTTP request, there are two parties that are involved. Number one is client and number two is server. For example, you initiate a request from your laptop. Your browser is the client and application that you're trying to access is hosted on the server. Now, proxy server sits between your client and the server. Or proxy server, it can be forward proxy or reverse proxy, is an intermediate layer between the client and the server. Then Abhishek, what is the difference between forward proxy and reverse proxy if both of them sits between the client and the server? Very simple. Forward proxy is a type of proxy server that is configured at the client side, whereas reverse proxy is a type of proxy server that is configured at the server side. What does that mean? Let's try to understand better using some examples. We will start with forward proxy first. Imagine you joined an organization. You are provided with a laptop. Next day you went to the office. Through this laptop, you connected to the corporate network or you connected to the Wi-Fi network. You're working on a Python application. You're trying to understand the application, but you're finding it difficult. So you decided to access google.com using this network. Your request to google.com was successful because you access google.com. From there, you access some official Python documentation. Still, after hours of debugging, you are not able to understand the code well. So this time you decided, okay, let me put the source code into ChatGPT. When you try to do this, your request to ChatGPT was blocked. I'm sure you must have come across these scenarios where you are trying to access a website, your request was successful, but when you try to access some other website, your request was blocked. This is not only within the corporate network, even when you talk about school network, airport network, to the matter of fact, even within your home network, your internet service provider blocks access to certain websites, some bad websites. How does this happen? So typically at the client side, that is at your network, the administrator of the network, it can be system administrator, it can be DevOps engineer, whoever is taking care of that network, they configure a forward proxy. And within the forward proxy server, they define certain rules. What are these rules? Like just we learned, block access to certain ports, block access to certain websites, block access to certain platforms which are configured with insecure SSL. These are some type of rules that are configured within the forward proxy. Now, what typically happens? Any system that is configured or any system that is connected to the client network. I mean, I'm taking this example where we are connected to the corporate network. So any system that is connected to the corporate network, request from the system is sent to the forward proxy first. That is configured by the DevOps engineers, and request is validated against the rules. If the request is good, then the request is forwarded to the server. If the request is bad, it does not meet the compliance of the organization, then forward proxy blocks the request and you might see response back from the forward proxy which says, hey, this website is not approved or you cannot access the website. Or sometimes you might not see the response message, because nothing is configured as response in the forward proxy. Is this the only use case of forward proxy? Typically, this is a major use case, but another use case is to encrypt the request. And this is usually done using VPNs. Yeah, so VPNs are also forward proxy servers, but VPNs are advanced forward proxy servers. So along with whatever we discuss here, VPNs can set up a tunnel, and through the tunnel, request is routed or secured and sent to the server. This can be encryption or this can be any type of security. So VPNs are advanced forward proxy servers. These are two major use cases of forward proxy. What you need to remember here, forward proxy is configured at the client side, typically within the network that you are using. What are some of the popular forward proxy servers? Squid is a very popular forward proxy server. Tiny proxy is another forward proxy server, but as the name suggests, this is a very tiny one. You can use it for your home projects or you can use it for your proof of concepts. Otherwise, you can also use HA proxy or nginx as forward proxy servers. Now, what about reverse proxy? Okay, forward proxy is pretty much clear. Now, when it comes to the reverse proxy, again, there are two parties that are involved, server and client. Now, this time we will not be talking anything from the client point of view because reverse proxy is configured at the server side. Again, let's take an example. Imagine you're working as a DevOps engineer and within your organization, you deployed an application onto a virtual machine. Let's say this is a game application that you have deployed to the virtual machine. Now, the application developer might not have configured all the security characteristics for this application, right? If you directly allow clients to access the application, you might run into denial of service attack, or you might run into rate limiting issues. You might run into security issues. To avoid all of these things, as a DevOps engineer, either within the same virtual machine or you create a new virtual machine when there are multiple applications in your organization, and within this new virtual machine, you set up a reverse proxy server. For example, popular reverse proxy is nginx. So alongside deploying the application, you also deploy a reverse proxy server so that you share the reverse proxy server's DNS name, right? The domain name that is configured with the reverse proxy to the client. So client access the reverse proxy, and from the reverse proxy, request is sent to the application in the virtual machine. Now what happens with this? This reverse proxy, for example, I was talking about nginx, can add a lot of security to your application. It can be rate limiting. So you can say within the reverse proxy, hey reverse proxy, don't allow more than 50 requests from a client within an hour, because the client might be trying to load the application or client is trying to hack your application. Or you can say, hey reverse proxy, only allow secure connections to the application. Or you can say reverse proxy, hey, just verify certificate before anyone tries to access the application. Or within the reverse proxy, you can say set up web application firewall. Even within the reverse proxy, you can configure load balancing as well. As I told you, you can use nginx as reverse proxy. So within the nginx configuration, you can define the load balancing. Tomorrow, when you have another copy of this application, you can tell reverse proxy, forward 50% traffic to this and 50% traffic to this. All of this can be done using a single reverse proxy. Once again, what are the characteristics? It can implement rate limiting. It can implement SSL offloading, SSL termination, web application firewall, even load balancing for you. And all of this is done at the server side. Now, Abhishek, can reverse proxy and forward proxy coexist? 100% yes. And in fact, it happens most of the times. So if you take a very simple example, imagine there is a client and a server. Maybe you are the client and you are trying to access a JSON validator application, right? So you are trying to access this website, jsonvalidator.com. Okay. And I am working as a DevOps engineer within this organization. So I deploy this JSON validator application onto a virtual machine, and I create another virtual machine and configure a reverse proxy. To this reverse proxy or the nginx that I'm using, I configure the domain name jsonvalidator.com. Right? So now, as client, you get to your laptop, you connect to your Wi-Fi network, you send request to jsonvalidator.com. So maybe in your Firefox or Chrome, you type jsonvalidator.com. This request goes to your forward proxy within your organization. Your DevOps engineer might have configured forward proxy. Request is sent to it. Forward proxy validates the request. And once the request is validated, forward proxy tries to access jsonvalidator.com, where the request is sent to the reverse proxy. Now, reverse proxy performs, as I told you, SSL offloading, verifies the client information, sees if rate limiting is met, everything is okay. Reverse proxy forwards the request to the application within the virtual machine. So in this case, both forward proxy and reverse proxy coexisted. This is a very, very common thing. Today, if you're accessing Amazon.com, right? Or maybe if you're accessing most of the popular websites out there, if you're doing it from your corporate network, your request is going through the forward proxy of your corporate network, and then it is received by the reverse proxy that is configured, and from the reverse proxy, it is sent to the application. So these are characteristics of forward proxy and reverse proxy. If you have to remember one thing, just remember forward proxy is configured at the client side, reverse proxy is configured at the server side. Now we will try with, or we will go ahead and understand forward proxy through a demonstration. So what I'll do is I will create a virtual machine on Amazon. So I'll set up an EC2 instance, and within this EC2 instance, so we will log in to this EC2 instance, and on this instance, I will set up a forward proxy server. We will use curl because we cannot use Chrome or Firefox on the EC2 instance. We will use curl and we will try to access a website. Let's see if the request goes through the forward proxy. And within the forward proxy, we will also try to block certain websites. Perfect. So for that, I'll head to my AWS account. Please note that every step that I'm trying to perform here is already part of this documentation. You will find this GitHub repository link in the description. So if you want to try out the demo after watching this video, you can go ahead, follow the steps as mentioned in the documentation. Okay, so let's create an EC2 instance first. I'll just call it as forward proxy. Okay, let's use Ubuntu instance. Even the steps are documented for Ubuntu, so try to go for it. We don't need 2 vCPUs and 1 GB memory. Let's go with T2 micro. Because this is a very simple demo, this is good enough. Let's create a key value pair. I'll just call it proxy key value. You can also use the connect to EC2 instance from the AWS console, but I'll go with key value pair. Perfect. So I have the key value pair also downloaded. I'll enable the HTTP traffic, but anyways, I have to update the security group configuration. That's all. I'll proceed with launch instance. Okay, in the meanwhile, I will take my terminal. Okay, on the terminal, I'll head to the downloads folder where I have the keys. Great. Let's see if we have the instance IP ready. So this is the instance public IP. I'll just copy it. SSH-I proxy key value pair, right? And Ubuntu at public IP address. Okay, because I just downloaded the key value pair, it says permissions are to open. Let's grant it chmod 400. Should be good enough. Let's try the command one more time. Perfect. So I'm connected to the EC2 instance. Now on this instance, I will install the forward proxy server. Okay. So how do I do that? It's very simple. I'll first update the apt repositories. Sudo apt update. The forward proxy server that we are going to use is Squid. As I told you, it's very popular. So once the repositories are updated, we will run apt install Squid, and that should install the Squid for us. Okay. Sudo apt install Squid. Okay, yes. Looks great. Almost there. 97. Great. So now we have Squid also installed. Let's verify. If I just do sudo ls/etc squid.conf. So I should see this file squid.conf. Perfect. So we have Squid installed. Now this is a default file. If you look at this file, there is a lot of default configuration. For example, sudo vim followed by this file here. We don't need all of this. So this is typically explaining you all the characteristics of Squid. Definitely I don't need it. So I'll just back up this file by running this command. So I'll just say sudo copy the default Squid file to something called etc squid.conf.original. So basically I'm just taking the backup of this file. Now I will empty this file. So I'll just do sudo followed by greater than symbol followed by this one here. Or I'll just say sudo move this file to /dev null. Right? Now if I try to open the file, perfect. The file does not exist. So I'll use a configuration that I already have. So I'll walk you through the lines that are part of this squid.conf file. Now, if you're watching this for the first time, the squid.conf file, you might find it overwhelming, but actually it's very simple. So you are telling Squid proxy server to run on port 8080. You can change this port if you need. Then you are basically declaring some safe ports. As I told you, you can block access to ports. You can block access to websites. So here I'm declaring some safe ports such as port 80, port 21, port 443. These are safe ports. And in the next line, I said deny access to all the unsafe ports. So everything other than these ports, Squid will block access to. In the same way, I defined some blocked websites and I denied access to these blocked websites. Which websites are blocked? Facebook.com, Twitter.com, Instagram.com, right? And I said allow access to all the other websites. That's it. So this is how we define port configuration and website configuration within the squid forward proxy server. Now, once you define this, you just have to restart. Every time you make configuration changes, it's important to first validate. So if you run this command, squid parse, so this will check if the configuration that you added to the file is valid, just like you run nginx command to validate nginx configuration. In the same way, you run squid-k to validate the squid configuration. Okay, so we will just restart the squid service, systemctl, restart squid, and enable squid. It is important to make sure once you have the squid service enabled, verify if it is in the running status or not. Okay, so it says squid service is enabled. Let's verify systemctl status squid. You should see this active running 8 seconds ago. Basically, just wait for 30 seconds so that sometimes the service might start, but due to some reasons, you might see service going down. So it is always good to see the nature of the service for at least 30 seconds. Okay, so 28 seconds service is still running. So squid is up and running. Now let's verify if the forward proxy is configured according to our requirements. How do you do that? As I told you, we will just run curl command, curl hyphen x http. We will use the forward proxy server. In our case, localhost 8080. So we are telling the curl command, forward the request to the forward proxy server, and from there, forward request to google.com. Okay, let's see what happens. Perfect. So we got 301. That means request to google.com is sent successfully. Let's try another website. So this time I'll try something like example.com. Let's give it a try. Perfect. So request to the example.com is also successful. Now let's try a domain that we blocked, right? So we blocked one of the domain, facebook.com, if I remember right. Let's see what happens. facebook.com. Okay, so observe this carefully. Your cache administrator has blocked request to facebook.com. Access control configuration prevents the request from being allowed at this time. We can also try twitter.com. Response will be exactly the same. Okay, twitter.com. Again, the response is the same. But if you try https google.com, as we already saw, response will be successful. So this is what your forward proxy server is doing. But Abhishek, why did you provide -x here? Because, we are not defaulting forward proxy at the network level. We can do it. For example, if you are using your personal machine for the demo purpose, right? Imagine if you are using your Mac and if you're trying to demo it, you can basically head to your settings. I'll quickly show you system settings, and within the system settings, you can head to network or just search for proxies, right? So this is proxies. Here, you can just add your web proxy. So you can provide the web proxy server name and the port, something that I've already done. So you can configure forward proxy in that way. So every request from your client will be default routed through the proxy server. Of course, if you're new to proxies, I wouldn't encourage you to try it for the very first time. Just get used to it and only then add proxies as default. But because we are using EC2 instance and because we are using the curl command, I just showed you using curl -x. This command is not doing much. Basically, it is informing curl that this is a proxy server and forward the request to this proxy server. That's all. Okay, so this is how you do proxy server configuration. Abhishek, how network engineers do at the organization level? So basically, within the organizational network, it can be the Wi-Fi network or it can be the router configuration. They just provide the forward proxy server configuration. They don't do it on the individual machines, but they do it at the organizational network level. Cool. Now let's try reverse proxy. Okay. So to try reverse proxy, what we are going to do here, we will set up two EC2 instances. On one EC2 instance, we will install the application, and on the other EC2 instance, we will install nginx. Of course, you can do it on a single EC2 instance as well. But anyways, like, okay, let's do it on a single EC2 instance. Because I know a lot of you are going to try the demo. So, if you try to create three EC2 instances, you might incur AWS billing. So I'll do it both nginx and the application on a single EC2 instance. So we'll spin up one more dashboard, launch instance. This time let's call it reverse proxy. Cool. Ubuntu. Let's go with T2 micro again. Key value pair, something that we just created, proxy key value. Allow HTTP traffic. That's all. Launch instance. Okay, on my terminal, I'll just open a new tab, and on the new tab, I'll switch to the downloads folder, and I will SSH to this newly created instance using proxy key value PIM. Okay, great. Ubuntu at the rate. What is the new instance IP? So the new instance IP address, is this the one? Let's see. Okay, let me just go back. Instances, reverse proxy. Perfect. Tada. Okay, great. Yes. Now we will first run the application as a service. Okay. Because we want to have application running in the background. So I will take a simple Python application or any application, and I will just run it as a background process so that we will have both application running and nginx also running. Okay, so for the purpose of the demo, I'll create this folder mkdir backend. Okay, I'll switch to this folder. Now, whenever you are working with a Python application, it is always good practice to create a virtual environment. So first, I will update the repositories, sudo apt update. I'll make sure Python is installed. I mean, to be honest, Python is installed on the Ubuntu virtual machines, but just double check. So I've installed Python, also Python 3 venv. Now, using this Python 3 command, Python 3 -m venv, I'll also call virtual environment name as venv. Once you create the virtual environment, you should source to the virtual environment, source venv/bin/activate. Cool. So now I created a folder, I created a virtual environment, home, Ubuntu, backend. And here I also have this folder venv. Perfect. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is within this virtual environment, I'm going to install Flask and gunicorn. But Abhishek, why are you installing these dependencies? Because the application that we are going to run is going to be a Flask application. Where will I get this application code? It's very simple. I have the application source code in the GitHub repository. In fact, it's a very simple application. Vim app.py. I'll explain you the application. So this application is running on port 5000 on the local host. When someone tries to access the application on the local host, it just returns this JSON message. Hello from backend server. This is actual server handling the request. That's it. This is the JSON that you will see as a response. Perfect. So Let's run this application. Instead of running the application directly, what I'll do is I will run the application as a backend service, right? For that, I will run this simple script. To run any application as a backend service, you have to create a file within systemd. So I've created a file called backend.service, and here I'll just provide the command to start the application. Gunicorn, bind the port, app:app. Okay, let's see. Once you run this command, just reload the daemon processes, sudo systemctl daemon reload, and also systemctl enable backend. So when you run this command, enable backend, even if your virtual machine goes down, next time this backend service comes up automatically. If you want to ignore this, you can just run the application directly, but make sure you create to open two tabs. In one tab, you have the application running. In other tab, you have nginx service running. Okay, anyways, let's see. Sudo systemctl status backend. Right? This is a new service that we created. Active, and it is in the running state. Perfect. We are all set. Now we are only left with installing nginx. So how do we do this? To install nginx, we will just run nginx. Yes. Okay. When you install nginx, nginx file is created, right? So we will update nginx reverse proxy configuration within this file. So what is this command doing? Very simple. It is just updating this file etc nginx sites available reverse proxy. So it is telling nginx reverse proxy, listen on port 80, and if anyone tries to access you on port 80 and on the slash, that is, if someone sends request to localhost :80 forward by slash, forward the request to http your backend IP :5000. In our case, backend IP is localhost. So I'll just create this file first, and I'll open this file using vim. And what I'll do here, okay, so I will just update the backend IP to localhost. Cool. So localhost :5000. Now anyone who sends request to nginx on port 80, it should automatically forward request to backend. That's what we learned, right? In the theory part, what did we learn? What does a reverse proxy do? It sends the request. So any request that is received by reverse proxy, it forwards the request to application on the virtual machine. In our case, reverse proxy and application are on the same VM. That's why we are using localhost. Perfect. Going back to terminal. Now that we updated the nginx configuration, let's enable the site by running this command. Okay. Let's restart nginx configuration. Cool. Let's verify if nginx is running. Sudo systemctl status nginx. Perfect. Nginx is running. So I'll just do curl localhost :80/. Great. See the response. This is the actual server handling the request. Hello from backend server. Where did we get this response from? If you do cat application file, this is the response that we are seeing. So this response is actually coming from the application, although we tried to access nginx. So what happened? We sent our client, in this case is the curl command. Through the curl command, when we hit reverse proxy, that is nginx forwarded the request to the virtual machine. So this is how reverse proxy works. I hope it is clear. We learned about forward proxy and reverse proxy. Make sure you go through the GitHub repository and try out the demo. Of course, we did not complicate the use case. Within the reverse proxy, that is nginx, you can configure security, you can configure web application firewall. So for that, you can look at nginx official documentation, because you have to update this reverse proxy configuration file. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section. Take care, everyone.